Automotive and Sunny Cabello from Elwood for presenting this presentation.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming to attend this class. I have a slideshow to share with everyone. So I'm gonna introduce myself first. So I'm Lawrence Martinson from Automotive Technology, and Sunny is here to help with the class too. And I'm a ASE certified master tech. That's so some of my experience with the industry is I was a business owner and I was a tech before that, and I've been teaching for about 9 years here at the college. So let me put this share my screen with you guys. There we go. Does everything look okay?
Yes, looks great.
Okay, thanks. Excuse me, this is the first time I'm sharing like this with so many people. So let me start our class out. So the very first thing that everybody should really think about before they start maintenance or touching a car is safety. So your life is not worth any amount of money that you can save by working on your car. So please be really careful when you're lifting, or even if you have to pull on the side of the road to even just look at your car without the correct safety equipment. So the very minimum you should have is at least your hazard lights blinking in a place that cars around you can see, not around blind turns. So if you have to pull over on the side of the road, make sure you're pulling in a place where other drivers can see you, and there's no section of road where they have a blind turn or anything where there can be any accidents. And the second thing you want to think about when you're pulling on the side of the road to check anything on your vehicle is that you are in a level place and you're not going to accidentally slide, or the car is going to actually start rolling. And that's to help make sure that you are going to stay safe. Okay. So there's a picture over here. This is a safety triangle, and it's a really good idea that if you have triangles or cones in your car, that you put it at least 20 to 40 feet in back of your car, so that drivers get an idea of that there's something oncoming, that they have to be cautious. One of the pet peeves I have is when the people are maintaining the roads out here, like if they're weed eating and stuff, or they have road construction and they put a like construction sign 10 feet from where they're doing construction because it doesn't give you time enough to slow down. So that's the same idea you want to share with other drivers around you, so that you are safe and they're safe. Okay. But before bad things happen, you want to know some of the basics. So the first thing was safety. So having your hazards on, or some kind of orange or bright colored cone or triangle to let people know that you're pulling the side of the road. And the second one is having an owner's manual, because this is your guide from the manufacturers to tell you all the information you need to know that is pertinent to your vehicle, including where your spare tire is, where your jacks are, and some of the things we're going to talk about later in this presentation are lifting points to safely lift your vehicle. And I have some funny stories to explain about lifting points. Okay. And then we're going to be looking at tire safety and some of the things you can check, or some observations you can make under the hood. Okay. Something you can do as part of maintenance in your car is keeping your car tidy. So keeping a clean windshield is really important for driver safety. It also helps take away some of the stress and pressures while you're driving. If you have a dirty windshield, it's harder to be observant and it just makes your eyes and your brain work just a little bit harder. So keeping your windshield clean and dry is really a key component in vehicle safety. And a lot of people don't know this, but the AC system in your car is part of keeping the windshield clear. Like, especially on days like this where it's raining really heavily and there's a lot of humidity in the air, your AC system, one of its functions is safety, in the idea that the AC system removes moisture from inside of your car. So if it gets cold, you can actually turn the temperature dial to the warm. But while your AC system is running, it actually removes moisture from inside the car. And then oftentimes you can see that moisture dripping out the bottom of the car as a form of condensation or water. So that's one safety factor that is important to keep up with in your car. Okay, the next thing is looking and keeping the floors clean, especially by the driver. I have friends that drive semi-trucks, and one of the things that they talk about is like a death wish to them is having a water bottle fall down there while they're driving, or even it like rolling over one of those hydro flasks or anything like that. If any of that gets on the floor while they're driving, it's extremely dangerous, because the cylindrical shape of the water bottle or the hydro flask can actually roll in front the pedals and can prevent you from stopping or slowing down the vehicle. And that same theory applies to passenger vehicles too. It's just dangerous, and it can cause all kinds of issues. Okay, I'm going to talk about this briefly right now, but getting away with spraying different kinds of cleaners in cars, kind of like Armor All. I'm going to get to this in a few slides too, but putting that on every surface is a little dangerous too, including floor mats. I know people who keep their cars really clean, and they spray all this stuff on the cars to make you shine, and those things can actually cause safety issues with the vehicle too, in the aspect of your feet can slide on the floor mats, your feet can slide off the pedals, and those are although your car looks really clean and it's shiny, it can really make for a dangerous situation. Okay, so keeping your driver's side floor clean is really important. And I know those of you who have children like I do, sometimes it gets out of hand with all the things that kids leave in the cars. So just maybe even keeping an eye on anything before you start driving that could cause an issue while you're driving would help increase your safety inside of the car as a driver. Okay, having your owner's manual in the same place consistently, like a glove box, is really important, because it has all your safety information inside of it. In aspects to like your tire pressure and where all these the jack and the tire iron might be located. Having that information near you as a driver is really handy. So keeping your car tidy and knowing where that is helps keep you safe and organized. Okay. And then keeping all of your tools in like a box in the back of your car might help things go quicker, and you helping you to find everything you need in one place, instead of having to dig through your trunk trying to search for a flashlight or jumper cables. Will just help you in the long run. So like I was talking about Armor All, you want to, even though it's sold on the automotive market to help protect your car, one thing that people don't know when I worked at Goodyear was that Armor All on tires is actually really bad. It actually breaks down the petroleum in the tire, and it doesn't make the tires last as long. So even though it makes them look shiny, it's not really a great product for plastics and petroleum-based products inside of the car. And like I mentioned earlier, Armor All can make things slippery, and it can make things inside of your car dangerous. Like if you've ever sat in somebody's car that they've had detailed and they have Armor All on the seats, it gets really slippery, and it can make for a really dangerous situation if you happen to slip in the car while you're driving and you can't slow down the car. It might cause an accident. And one thing I've been talking to my students about recently, which has become kind of a big problem, is this picture on the right. There's this kind of fad that's come out with bedazzling steering wheel covers, bedazzling the key bezel, like that start-stop picture in the top right-hand corner. And what people haven't realized as consumers is, for one thing, the steering wheel cover like that is distracting as a driver. So when I think about safety, I always try to take away any distractions inside of the car that could take away my attention from the road for split seconds, like texting, having to dig a water bottle out from under a pedal, those kinds of things. Well, having this bright, shiny steering wheel cover on is a huge distraction. So it's you want to try to minimize that if you can, to keep things a little bit more tidy and less distracting for your eyes. When you look at that top right-hand corner with the bedazzled start-stop bezel ring, that's what that's called. It's the button that you would use to start your car. A lot of people or customers don't know that there is a security chip behind there, and it needs to be able to project a signal to your fob, your key fob, and to the car for the car to be able to start. So I've actually seen a bunch of case studies that have come out recently that a customer comes in with a car like this and the car won't start. And really all it was peeling that bedazzled sticker off of the key bezel, and it instantly started. So it's really important to try to minimize these kind of distractions inside of the car. Okay. So simple is best. Some of the safety equipment that you should have in your car are AAA, a spare tire, a road triangle, tire iron, flashlight, and everybody has cell phones now, so we really don't have an excuse as to why we can't have a flashlight available. A first aid kit, tire pressure gauge, and a service jack. So I would really like to express to everybody that even though I'm a master tech and I work on all my own cars, I still have AAA because there's nothing that can replace the safety of, especially if I'm stuck in a place I can't work on the car, or my family needs a tow. So AAA is actually the best safety equipment that you can purchase. I think it's like $100 a year. You get 2 tows or something like that, and they do other emergency services, and it's worth the money. Having a spare tire in your vehicle is really handy in case you are in an emergency and now all of a sudden you got a flat. You're going to need something to keep you moving, and if you don't, then you'd call AAA. The road triangle is part of safety, and it just alerts drivers around you that you are pulled on the side of the road, and you're having an emergency. Most people, when they see something like that, are going to slow down. Okay. One thing you can do if you don't have a road triangle is, I believe most cell phones now have a strobe light built into the flashlight function of your phone. So you could turn that on just to alert somebody, drivers oncoming, especially if it's in the evening or in the dusk hours when most accidents happen, that you are on the side of the road. The next tool here is the tire iron, and that would be used for removing the lug nuts on your wheel, so that you could put your spare tire on. or you could take your wheel and go get it repaired at a tire shop. So that's pretty critical having in the car if you are planning to do any of this kind of service work. Having a flashlight's important so you can see in the dark. Even if it's in the daylight hours, it's still hard to see in some of the underneath the car in some of the shadowy areas. Having a first aid kit is really handy because you might come across an accident. Like a few weeks ago, I was driving my daughter home and I saw this dump truck had flipped on the side of had flipped over on Omapil Road. So, I mean, if they had an emergency where they were bleeding out, having a first aid kit would be really handy to maybe save a life. The next tool is a tire pressure gauge. We're going to be learning how to use this tool in a video I have to share with everyone, but it is one of the most overlooked tools, I believe, in anybody's toolkit. Most people don't consider the effects of tire pressure, but I'll share with you that you can actually save quite a bit of money and keep your tires working correctly if you just check the tire pressure often. And I'll explain in a little bit how often we should be checking the tire pressure. And the last tool down there is our service jack, which is used to lift the vehicle safely, so we can get the tire or the rim off of the vehicle. Okay, there's a video here, talking about tire safety. So I'm gonna hit play here. Okay, good afternoon. For this class today, we're going to be using my 2009 Honda Fit to teach about some maintenance and safety aspects of your vehicle. Okay, the first thing we want to look at is our owner's manual. I'm going to include a link in the presentation for a site that I use to teach with, that if you have lost or you bought a vehicle that did not have an owner's manual, and it called NASTIV. This is the place you want to look for all of your service information for your vehicle, including your tire size, tire pressures, jacking points, where your jack and your safety equipment will be in the car. For example, if you have a jack or a spare tire, and it'll also tell you all the chemicals that your vehicle uses from the OEM manufacturer, which in this case is Honda. Okay, good afternoon. For this class today, we're going to be using my 2009. Okay. So if for some reason you bought a car or you don't have an owner's manual, like in the video, I was explaining, you can go on to the NASTIV website. It's a .org website, and I learned about this about 7 years ago, and it was designed to help the aftermarket community and private individuals gain access to all the manufacturers' websites for accurate information. And on this website, which now you have to create an account for, which is free, it gives you links to all the manufacturers' websites. So you might ask why we might need a link to the website, but if you were to Google, say, Honda or Ford, there might be 1,000 websites that may look like the manufacturer's websites, but they're not, and they might not give you the accurate information you need for servicing your vehicle. This website was created by the federal government as a law that was put into place, which is called the Right to Repair Act of 2013. It was created actually in Massachusetts because the manufacturers were trying to kind of monopolize on the information, and they were trying to force everybody to have to buy it from them, and that's illegal. So, or they were trying to not make everybody buy it from them, but they were trying to say you can't work on your vehicle. That's basically where this came from. So they created this website, and it has links for every single manufacturer of a vehicle, a semi-truck, and even a lot of heavy duty machines. That includes Cat and Case and a bunch of other machines. So if you don't have a owner's manual, this is the next best place to look. I know, for example, Ford has, there's PDFs that you can actually download every single owner's manual for the last, I want to say 12 to 15 years. So you can download it, put it in a binder and put it in your car, or even just download it on your phone. So a lot of people do that now, or even students, they'll actually download it straight to their phone or their laptop, and then they have access to it without having to hold on to the book. But there is value in holding the book, just in case, you know, your phone battery dies. At least you have a hard copy. Okay. I have a Slido created. If you don't mind, you can pull up the QR code, and I have a question here. It says, where can we easily find reliable information for our vehicle? So I think in the presentation, I talked about several places that we could find reliable information. Where do you guys think we could find that? While you're voting or you're doing the poll, I'm going to talk real quickly about some of the places that my students think they could find it. And they often, even though we pay for service information in our program, a lot of people will rely on Google searches, YouTube searches, and forums, which can often lead to inaccurate information, and they can actually cost customers and shops money, and it can lead to technicians making mistakes. So give us another like 5 seconds, and then we can cover the answer. Okay, I'm gonna move forward. So the owner's manual is one, and the NASTIV website is another one. Good job. If at all possible, please try not to just Google search for some of your questions. And if you have to use Google search, at least look for a site that seems reliable, that it's not just leading you down into a forum with a bunch of people just giving, you know, answers, because some of those answers are really, really sketchy. Okay. Okay, so like I mentioned earlier, we want to make sure we are always safe before we get started doing any kind of work on the car or your vehicle. You want to make sure that your vehicle is in park and your parking brake is applied, even if the vehicle is a hybrid, an electric vehicle, a gas, just a regular gas car, or a diesel vehicle. You always want to make sure that the vehicle's in park. If you have an automatic transmission, if you have a manual transmission, you want to make sure that the vehicle is in gear, and you want to put the parking brake on. You also are gonna, if you're at home and you have to service something and you have the ability to do it, you want to maybe chalk the wheels with wood, or they sell them at the store where it's just a wheel chalk, so the wheels don't want to roll. You could use hollow tiles if you have to. So make sure that the vehicle is not going to roll. And then you want to make sure you have the drivers around you have a good visual of your vehicle. So you have flashing lights on, a road triangle or cones. And then you want to have a backup plan if you're not able to safely work on the vehicle. So like I mentioned earlier, if you happen to pull on the side of the road, you notice that you got a flat tire, try to make sure that if that location you're at isn't far enough into a shoulder, that you at least drive the vehicle to a place close by that has a larger shoulder, so you can pull, at least 6 feet off the side of the road, so that you're not like working on the side of the road right where cars are driving past really fast. The next thing you want to do that everybody is capable of is just making some general observations. So some general observations that we can start with are pulling our engine oil dipstick and smelling and looking at the oil on the dipstick. If everybody smelled like burning kitchen oil, it's basically the same smell that you would smell from burned engine oil. So if you smell your dipstick and it smells burned, and you don't have an oil life indicator, you might want to have your oil serviced in the near future. And the near future is like a month to 3 months, not a year down the road. So just keep that in the back of your head, that if it smells really bad, there's probably something wrong with that fluid, including your transmission oil. The next thing we can make some general observations about are your tires. So we can look at our tire pressure for one. So if our tires have wear and tear on them, or they look a little deflated, you might be able to check with your tire pressure gauge to see if you have the correct pressure. And most tires that come out nowadays have a wear indicator bar in the grooves of your tire. So if you look at the tire and the bar is equal with the tread of the tire, that tire is beyond its safety capabilities, and you should have them replaced. So that's actually one thing that your safety check stations should be looking at. And I see cars get passed all the time with bad tires. Tires are one of the most overlooked safety factors of the car, because that's the friction coefficient between your rims and the road. So if your tires don't have enough tread on them, or wires are sticking out, or the grooves are worn out where the water can't be displaced from the tire, that it can actually cause your car to skid, and you can lose control and get in an accident. Okay. The next thing about tires, I talk a lot about tires because it gets overlooked, is that it helps you save fuel. So if your tires are deflated, even just a few pounds over time, that's going to cause a little bit more resistance, and it's going to it's going to increase the rolling resistance, or decrease the rolling resistance, excuse me, and it's going to use more fuel to make your vehicle roll. So that can help save you some money. And the last place we're going to look at is our coolant. So you always want to check your coolant when the engine is cool. You can touch where you're able to touch the cap, and even then you should still be a little cautious. And we're going to be looking for low levels in the radiator, or in the reservoir if you have that kind of car. And you're going to be looking for dark or rusty colored coolant, unless it's like a GM or General Motors or Chevy type of coolant that is orange. And that would be a little bit difficult to tell if there was rust in there. And if you come across a situation where your coolant looks rusty, or it's very low in the radiator, you're going to want to have a shop look at that for you. There's most likely a leak, or your engine or your cooling system needs to be serviced and flushed. Okay, so I have a video here showing how to check tire pressure. Hi, so we're going to be looking at our tire pressure with our tire pressure gauge. The very first thing we want to know is how much pressure our tire should have in it. So we can do this one of two ways. We can use our owner's manual, which should be in your glove box, but the best way that every car has already provided is the label by the driver's side door. So if we look over here real quick, we can look at this inner sticker here that has our tire size, and it also has our recommended tire pressure while the tire is cold, which is 32 psi for the front and 32 psi for the rear. And it also has our spare tire, which we should check occasionally as well. Okay, so now that we got our tire pressure, we can come over to our tire and look at our gauge here. And we're going to want to take our valve stem cover off. I want to put this someplace safe that we're not going to lose it. And we're going to take our tire pressure gauge and we're going to stick it in a kind of angular vertical area here, so that when we do apply our pressure, our gauge doesn't want to just shoot out. So we're going to push down, we're going to take a look at it. So it's about 32, 33 psi, so I'm a little low on air pressure. And I'll do it again one more time. If we had it facing down to check it, this might shoot all the way out. So if we stick it up, this kind of angular facing upward motion, it will it should give us an accurate reading. Okay, that's the first thing we want to check is our tire pressure. And probably in the presentation we'll be talking about how often we should check these things, which should be every time we fill gas. Another thing we should check while we're down here after filling our gas or fuel is to just check out the tire and make sure the tire is in good shape and that we are not down at our wear indicators. So I have a flashlight here, which you should probably have on you in your car, and as you can see, this tire is down to its wear, close enough to its wear bars. Okay. Okay, and then I have a back-to-back video, so it's checking tire pressure, and then the next video is going to be how to remove your wheel to put your spare tire on. Okay, I have a quick question for everybody. If we could take a quick pause here, and I'm curious to see how many people might know, and you can put it in the chat if you'd like, but why do we have to check our tires when the tires are cold? What do you guys think? Okay, I think Sunny might be able to read some of those answers off.
So we have some don't knows, and Misty has because the hot air expands, so it might not give you an accurate reading.
That's a perfect answer. So as we drive, like I was explaining earlier, because the tire is a friction coefficient between your wheel and the road, it develops a lot of heat and it can make the air inside expand. Maybe I can cover this too a little bit. How do we lose tire pressure? So I've had a lot of people ask, how come my tire pressures fluctuate? What do you guys think? You can put that in the chat too. Take a guess.
Bad driving.
Bad driving.
Bad driving.
You could have cracks. You could have pinholes. You could have valve cores inside of the valve stem where you would be checking your pressure. That could be leaking. The little valve core inside there could be loose. But actually, our tire pressures vary according to atmospheric pressure. So depending on when you filled your tire last, that pressure inside your tire is going to vary according to the outside air pressure. So that's what actually causes the tire pressures to kind of fluctuate.
What about time of day?
The time of day too, yep, because it's going to be warmer on some days and colder on other days. Also, if you have your tires replaced at Costco, they use nitrogen in their tires instead of just regular air. So nitrogen is actually used because it has the atmospheric pressure has less effect on it. So it's designed to kind of be more of a stable gas inside of your tire. So if you are curious, how do I know I have nitrogen in my tire? When they put your tires on at Costco, they usually put a green cap. That's what that's for, is to signify that nitrogen is in your tire. And the two gases are compatible, but if you start filling regular air in, it can start to vary with the atmospheric pressure changes.
Wait, can I ask a question then real fast?
Sure.
So but normal people would not go put nitrogen air in there.
No, not anybody has access to well, I mean, no. You would, so if you purchase your tires from Costco, you can go back to Costco and they'll fill them for you. It's part of the service package when you purchase the tires.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
So Lawrence, this is Lee. The
Hi, Lee.
best time, hi, hon. The best time to check your, I know you said to check it whenever you put gas, but what about early in the morning when you're just about ready to leave the house?
That is the best actual time to check it, is when the vehicle hasn't been driving, because you're going to get the most accurate reading then.
Awesome, thank you.
You're welcome. The reason why we usually check them when we're filling gas is just because we want to make sure that we don't have a flat or a low pressure. If you don't have tire pressure monitor sensors in your car, which most newer cars in the last decade have tire pressure monitor sensors in it. It was designed as a driver safety factor and also for fuel. Pretty much everything inside of the car that we think of is to help a technician or a consumer is really about fuel economy. So I know it's a little bit off topic, but manufacturers are all about saving money. And when they design things like that help fuel economy, they actually get a carbon credit. So they're not doing it for free. They get money back from the federal government. And so tire pressure monitor sensors are designed really to help safety and fuel economy, but the manufacturers put it in cars because they get a carbon credit.
Hey, Lawrence. Dean has a
Lawrence,
question.
Dean here. So if you have one of those fancy cars that does have a sensor that says, "Hey, your tire pressure is low," are they pretty accurate?
Yes, they are very accurate until they go bad. So if you happen to fill air at a gas station that doesn't have a water separator in it, and especially on a day like this when it's really humid, the moisture gets in your tire and it causes those sensors to go bad. But over time, the batteries, there's a battery inside of them, they tend to go bad too. So it could be one or one of several problems, those being the most common. Are you there?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're still here.
Okay, I'm sorry. I think somebody else was asking something before Dean.
Are tire pressure sensors easy to replace, or do you need a technician?
You need a technician. So you're going to need a tire shop or a shop that regularly changes tires. I wouldn't trust anybody putting those in because they are expensive. I just replaced, I bought replacements for my Honda, and I think they were about, on Amazon, they were about $40 a piece. But if you were to buy them on Island, they're about $100, I think. A tire pressure monitor sensor. So they are actually built into the valve core or the valve stem that you would be filling air into your tires. So it's all one piece. Actually, a better answer is you should have a reliable shop. If you are looking for somebody to work on your vehicle, you should have a reliable shop with an ASE certification, kind of label with their licenses posted in the office. That's the only shops I would recommend having anything done including oil changes, because cars are so technical now that if you aren't trained correctly, you can make some serious mistakes that can cost a lot of money to repair. Okay, if there aren't any other questions, I'm going to move on to the next video, which shows tire removal.
Hi, so we're going.
Yep.
Hi, so this segment of the videoing is going to show how to change your tire. The first thing I want to cover with everybody is safety again. So I want to make sure everybody understands that if you have a flat tire and or you develop a flat tire while you're driving, you want to make sure that you pull over in a safe place that is level and that your car is in park and the parking brake is on, so that the car doesn't roll away or roll on top of you, or possibly that the jack becomes unstable and the car falls on you. So there's two things we're going to need for this. One's going to be our tire iron, or some cars may come with a you might be able to purchase like a tire cross. It has different sizes of lug nut hex sizes like this. This is for this car, and it's usually in the back by your spare tire, and it's in your trunk. The next thing you're going to need is like a service type of jack like this. This is a screw jack, usually comes in the trunk of the car, and it's got this type of crank on it, which makes the screw jack expand, and that's what lifts up your car. And if you look at the top of the screw jack here, we have this kind of notched section. This would go into your pinch weld, which I'm going to show you next on the vehicle. So your pinch weld is down here at the bottom of the car. There are different design pinch welds on different kinds of cars. The best way to find out which pinch weld you have is to look in your owner's manual and exactly where you should be lifting your car. This is a front-wheel drive vehicle, so our pinch weld is right here. Other full-size vehicles with full-size frames, like trucks for example, they don't have pinch welds. You lift them, their jacking points are at the frame. Okay, so you may need a bigger jack. So I'm going to just set this up so there's a little bit of pressure on the pinch weld in that notch of the jack. I'm not going to lift the car yet at all because I'm going to need to break the lug nuts free before I lift the vehicle off the ground. That's a big mistake amateurs make sometimes. They try to lift the vehicle up off the ground before they break the lug nuts free, and the result would be the wheel spinning. So we're going to go over to our wheel now, break the lug nuts free, and then I'm going to lift the vehicle up on this flat surface, and then we're going to take it from there. So let's move over to the wheel. I'm going to break the lug nuts free. Then we do it in a star type pattern. We're not going to take the lug nuts out. We're just going to take just break them free. And when I get the wheel, all the lug nuts free off the wheel, then I'm going to lift the vehicle up. So now that my lug nuts are free, I'm going to turn this in a clockwise motion to make the screw jack go up. It might take a few minutes to get this high enough to lift the car off the ground. If you notice, you can see that the jack has now been cranked up, and I'm just about lifting up the vehicle now on this one side. I want to ensure everybody, again, or make sure that everybody understands that safety is the utmost importance here. So if you cannot get the car into a safe location where this kind of work could be done, please call AAA to either move the vehicle or have somebody do it for you, so that you don't have any accidents. Now the wheel is off the ground. Our jack is in a secure, safe location. We are in a safe place. Now I'm going to finish taking out the lug nuts. Now that these have been broken free, it will be a little easier to take them off. This will go by a little bit quicker. One tip I can give you is to make sure that you don't lose these. If you are going to be delayed at any time, make sure you put them in the car, like in a cup holder or on the passenger floor. So at this point, I'm going to just rock the wheel back and forth a little bit. Oh, this one's actually a little stuck. So one trick I've learned over the years is to give it a little kick at the bottom corner. Usually the wheel will break free. So back up here a second. There we go. So the wheel's now free, where we can take our spare tire from our trunk, and which should be inflated and checked while you check your other tires when you fill gas. So we're going to take our spare tire and put it on to replace this flat. So don't be surprised if you look in your trunk and you see a different sized rim and tire. That might be what is known in the industry as a donut. That would be an emergency spare tire. They usually have a 50 or 60 mile limitation on how far you can drive. They're much skinnier, and basically it's only for emergencies, where you could take your tire, go get it fixed or replaced, and then you would put the replaced tire back on your car. So I'm going to use this this tire to show how to put the rim and tire back on this car safely. So if this was repaired, I would take the tire, line up all my studs back in the hole again, and then the rule we follow is to start at the very top of the wheel, put that lug nut in first by hand, and then I'm going to do a star type pattern to ensure that the lug nuts are going on equally, and we're putting an equal amount of force from the top first around in a circle or in a triangular pattern, to make sure that my wheel doesn't go on crooked. So at this time I'm going to just follow just work backwards, and I'm going to just snug these up by spinning them. And then once I have my wheels straight, so if you can see that when I did this top one, it pulled the wheel actually flat against the surface of your hub. I'm gonna go in a star pattern. You can go by hand for these just to take up some of the slack. This same pattern works for all wheel lug counts. So if you have 6, 8, 4, or 5, you're going to do a star pattern. Now that my lugs are on snug, I know that my wheel is straight. I'm going to let the pressure down or unscrew my jack. If you're working with a hydraulic jack, one of the safety factors I want to talk about is always using a jack stand. A jack stand is a adjustable type of locking mechanism that would go under here to hold the weight of the vehicle up so that the hydraulics doesn't fail and you have an accident that way. This type of jack doesn't use hydraulics, it uses a screw method, which is a lot safer to leave up like this because there are no hydraulic seals to fail. So I'm going to bring this down, back on the ground, and then I can physically tighten up the lug nuts by hand. If you were to take this to a shop, you should be using a torque wrench to ensure that the lug nuts are at the proper torque, fastener torque, to make sure that they don't come off. So now that I got this back down on the ground, I'm going to take my screw jack out, and you would collapse this back down to its original size to fit back in the car and fold the handle over. Before you are done, you're going to need to go back over to the lug nuts, and you're going to start at the top again and tighten them as much as you can turn them by hand should be sufficient in an emergency situation, until you can get to a shop that has a torque wrench to ensure that your lugs are at the correct torque. So this is my 5th one, and I should be ready and safe to roll again. Okay, thank you.
Okay. I have another Slido here. If you don't mind pulling up the QR code, you can use your phone, and take a picture of the QR code, and it should take you straight to the link for this quiz. while I'm waiting for you to join, if you have any questions, Sunny can probably read off the chat if you want to put it in the chat.
So one question was, when changing out a flat, what is the best way to remove a tire that is stuck due to corrosion?
Okay, so this is probably something you should practice. And part of the maintenance of the vehicle is having the tires rotated. So it shouldn't, if your wheels are corroded where it's stuck against the hub, kicking it like I showed should help loosen it up. But I've had a really bad almost fused hubs before, where the wheel was just stuck to the back where the lug nuts or the studs come through. And I've actually had to kick it and spray with PB Blaster and kick it over and over again in multiple places. So I actually had to rotate the wheel in a bunch of different times around in a circle while trying to break it free. There are no other tricks that you can use besides that, because any other tools you use could damage the wheel or the hub. So just spraying it with some kind of penetrating oil is the best thing you can do, and just trying to knock it off with your foot. Your foot's the safest method because you won't hurt your hand. Most people when they're doing this are wearing shoes, so that's the best thing for the car that I've learned over time. So we got 5 people. Let's see this little quiz up here. So when should we check our tire pressure? The question is, answers are once a month, once a year, every time we fill fuel, or every oil change. So we had talked about when to check our tire pressures, and even though I mentioned, or even I think it was Misty that was asking about or give the answer about when the vehicle runs and tires are hot, the tire pressure is higher. However, we want to check every time we fill fuel to make sure that we even have the correct amount of pressure in there, that it's not too little. Okay.
Hey, Lawrence, is WD-40 okay to use to loosen the lug nuts or spray on stuck bolts?
Yes, that's a good question. So WD-40 is a solvent. Does anybody know what WD-40 stands for? I should have put that in the quizzes. So WD-40 stands for water displacement number 40. NASA invented it to spray on their space shuttles to keep the hulls from rusting. So it can be used as a penetrating oil. However, there are other products that the company WD-40 sells that are their actual penetrants that are designed to kind of wick into parts a little bit better than WD-40. WD-40 is a good start, but the product I use often is PB Blaster. There's some other products that are on the market called Croil. And like I said, WD-40 has a penetrant too. It's just a different formula. If you ever were to spray that on like a bike chain, for example, that's a really good example I use all the time. Is WD-40 is a solvent. So if you sprayed that on something that was supposed to have oil on it, it would clean the oil off. It's not. It will act as a lubricant for a very short period of time, but it's more of a solvent-based product. So if that's what you have at home to try to break a corrosion free, that's better than nothing. So, but there are some products that are actually designed to kind of wick into different kinds of metals to break corrosion and rust free. Okay, so let's check out our answer here.
Hey, wait, can I ask? And
Sure.
it's not gonna like go, if it goes onto your brake pads or anything, it won't like
Oh.
mess that up.
Definitely, you should not get any liquids other than water on your brake pads, because it will absorb into the brake material and it'll cause it to break down much quicker.
How close are your brake pads to, like, if you're spraying on your lug nuts?
Well, you
Spray
wouldn't
on
want to
the-
spray it into your wheel area. You want to just
Right.
get it where the lug nuts are.
Okay,
You want to be careful where you spray that onto.
okay.
Okay. Okay, good job. So every time we fill fuel is probably the best time to check for your tire pressure. However, checking once a month is also very handy because you know our it's better than not checking it ever. I've had customers never check their tires and it's low, and they don't understand why the vehicle is pulling one direction or why their fuel economy has gone down. So just checking, you know, just doing how depending on how often you fill fuel too. Like for example, electric cars, they don't ever fill fuel, so they would have to use a different method, and that's kind of where the industry has gone to with tire pressure monitor sensors. So it should automatically tell you if your tires are going low. But manually checking it is also very important, just in case a sensor is failed or the light inside your dash burned out. Okay, let's move forward. Oh, good job, Julie. Oh, everybody on here, good job. Okay, what happened here? Okay, the next video is checking under your hood. Again, I want to make sure everybody knows you want to be safe while doing this. There are different processes to checking your fluids. For example, you wouldn't want to check your coolant while the engine was super hot, but when you check your transmission fluid, your engine's going to have to be running to check it accurately. So I'm going to play this video next.
Okay, so in this this next part of the video, we're going to be looking at the different chemicals we have inside of our car. Like I explained before, you want to kind of go to the service information to find out quantities. In this section of specifications, the Honda book here doesn't say exactly which chemical to use, but it does give you quantities of how much oil and transmission fluid, as well as coolant, and even your fuel and windshield reservoir quantities are in here. Having that is a good set of information, so you know how much to buy if you're replacing or flushing any of these chemicals. Well, we're really going to be talking about maintenance today, so we want to look at the things that we can check while we're filling gas or after we're done filling fuel in our car. The very first thing I like to look at is our battery. So we can see our battery here. We always want to check it, make sure that it's not growing any corrosion around the terminals, because that can actually affect your electrical system. We can look at our brake fluid. So my brake fluid here is about halfway between min and max. If you look at the side over here at the reservoir, you can see the min and max mark. So it's probably going to need brakes pretty soon. The very next thing we can look at is our engine oil. And in this car, the engine oil dipstick is orange. Many times this is yellow, or I've seen them red. And this is our engine oil dipstick. We're going to want to pull this out and check our level. So our level is good. I have an oil life indicator in my car that tells me when my oil level is, or when my oil change is due. This car's been warmed up, so all the chemicals are, all the fluids are a little hot at the moment. So you want to be careful when you're checking these so you don't get burned. The next fluid we can look at after our engine oil is our transmission fluid. This vehicle has a transmission fluid dipstick for the automatic transmission. This dipstick is yellow down here. It's hiding. If you couldn't find this, or you're trying to figure out if your car had one, you would have to look up in the service information or in your owner's manual to see if you have a dipstick. So if I pull this out, you're supposed to check this while it's running, while it's warm, and you're going to want to wipe it away and dip it again and check that your fluid level is between these hatch marks. It's really important to make sure that you have the right quantity of oil in your transmission while it's running and it's hot, because automatic transmission fluid expands, and so it can give you an inaccurate reading while it was cold. So between these cross hatches is very important. When you add fluid, you want to add just a little bit at a time, but I want to caution you that if you are low on fluid, there may be a leak under your vehicle. The fluid doesn't necessarily evaporate, so you want to make sure that you check under the vehicle to make sure that if there are any leaks, you want to get that checked out by an ASC certified shop. I'm going to put this back in the transmission down here. Want to make sure that when you put the dipstick back in the transmission that it goes all the way in, and that it's not just floating around, or you'll lose your dipstick. Okay, there is one more place that I'd like to teach everybody about, and that is the coolant reservoir. This is a huge misconception by many owners of vehicles, that this is where our coolant goes. And really, in this type of car, the coolant goes inside the radiator. This is just an overflow tank. So this would be your radiator cap. And this is designed to release any excess pressure so the radiator doesn't blow up. But this reservoir down here is meant to be checked while the vehicle is cool, because the coolant expands from the radiator and the cooling system of the engine while the engine's turned off into this overflow tank. So this overflow tank is not designed to hold all of your coolant. It's only designed to catch whatever coolant expands from your system. Okay, so if we take this out and look, there should be a level down here of min and max, just like our brake fluid reservoir up here. Here, let me release our radiator cap. Too much pressure in here. There we go. So we want to really look at our radiator for our fluid level. We want to add coolant in here first. Now, coolant is not all the same. This specific vehicle, this Honda, uses a blue type of coolant. If I shake this, you can see a lot of people are familiar with the green type of coolant. And really what you want to do is check your owner's manual or call an automotive shop to see what kind of coolant you require for your vehicle. And like I said, you want to check here first, make sure the level of the coolant is up to the top here. After you're done checking that, you could add coolant to your reservoir, your overflow tank down here at the minimum mark. You don't want to overfill this reservoir, because the coolant could overflow while you're driving, and that could create a mess. Okay, when you're done checking your coolant, you want to put your cap on and twist it and make sure that's all the way on. This coolant cap will be under pressure while the engine's running. It will also be under pressure while the engine is hot. So you want to let this cool down before you check the coolant level in here. The last place I think everybody should be capable of checking is your air filter. This is your air filter housing, or at least this is mine in this vehicle. Some of these are tricky to check because of their location, but I'm going to pull this out real quick. I pulled my cap off, and you can see my air filter is really dirty, so it needs to be changed. Filters like this used to be able to be cleaned, but now the paper pleats are so sensitive that when it gets clogged up like this, it's unable to be cleaned. Okay, when you pop your air filter back in, it's really important that you get all your clamps on so that we don't have a leak in our intake system, because that could change our fuel economy. I'm gonna set these clamps in here. Not every car is the same. Some of these air filter housings are much easier to access, and some of them are much harder to access. So taking a look at some instructions would be really helpful if you haven't changed your air filter before.
Okay, so part of the sound got blocked out, but you want to make sure your clamps are on all on good. Some of these types of air filter boxes are partially screwed or bolted together, and part of it has clamps. There is not one design. So looking up the service information, this is something you could try to figure out if you had to on YouTube as to how to take the box, the air filter cover off, and then and ensuring that the cover is level after will make sure that you don't have any air leaks or any dirty air going into your engine. That actually helps save a lot of maintenance and wear to your physical engine, because it keeps the dirt out from scoring the engine block.
Lawrence,
Yes.
we have a question.
Sure.
Washable air filters worth the expense?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Are washable air filters worth the expense?
Okay, yes. So there's two sides of washable air filters. One is that you can save money by using a kind of like a lifetime washable filter. However, a lot of customers, and I've seen some shops do this, where they overspray oil, because the washable air filters are able to be washed, but after you're done cleaning and drying them, they have to be oiled. And the oil that goes on sometimes gets oversprayed onto the filter. So in this scenario, spraying more doesn't make it better. So it can actually get sucked from the filter into the mass airflow sensor, which is the sensor right after the air filter box. And a contamination of the mass airflow sensor would not only cause a check engine light to come on, but it would drastically change or decrease your fuel economy. Your engine could start to act up funny. And so servicing them the correct way takes a little bit more time, because you're going to have to wash it and then properly dry them, and then spray just a light amount of oil in sections of time, so that you don't over oil the filters. But yes, they are worth the money as long as they're serviced properly.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Another question I've been asked before is it going to give me a better performance? And I would really caution against counting on the fact that an air filter is going to give you more horsepower. The manufacturers have spent millions of dollars on research and development to find the best, most powerful components that can possibly make your engine work the best. And just sticking with the OEM parts for the majority of your services will lead to a long life of the engine. It won't cause any issues by sticking with the stock parts. It's kind of a misconception that if you change an air filter, it's going to give you a lot more horsepower. It might allow the engine to breathe just a little better, but it's not going to make your car go from like a stock Honda Civic to a souped up Honda Civic just with an air filter change. So just keep that in the back of your head. And if you ever want to think about it, I usually use the human body as a kind of a comparison, right? It's like putting a bigger mouth on your face is going to make you run faster or something. It's a similar idea. Any other questions?
Yes, we have one more question. If your car is leaking, can you easily identify if it's oil, coolant, water from the AC by looking at the color without having to crawl under the car?
Oh, that's tricky. So you may have to move the car, but at some point you're going to have to go and either touch it or smell it, and that would be the best way to identify what kind of fluid it is. However, if your vehicle is still cold, you can always look at all of your different reservoirs and look to see if anything is low. And that would be a really good way to not have to crawl underneath the car. But if your AC is on and you notice a drip, that's most likely coming from your passenger side, and that would be your AC system. Besides that, you would want to smell Yeah, it pretty much would come down to smell. So coolant, when it's leaking or when it's even burning, smells like very sweet. That's why it's kind of dangerous for animals. So if you leave a pan of coolant out, cats and dogs and birds will come and drink that coolant. So it's really bad for animal life. It's also bad to pour that stuff down into the sewers and drains because it's going to go out to the ocean. So that would be my best recommendation is to touch it. If you touch the liquid and it feels and smells and looks like oil, it's most likely either power steering fluid, engine oil, or transmission fluid. If it's coolant, it's going to smell sweet. It's also going to feel oily, but really the difference is going to be the way it smells. And again, just looking at your reservoirs or your radiator will help tell you if you're low on fluid. One trick I teach the students is to squeeze the hose. If it's a coolant issue, when you squeeze the radiator hoses, there should be pressure. There should be a little bit of liquid pressure in the hoses. While the engine's running, it should be hot. But if you squeeze it and you listen, you might be able to hear it squirting or dripping out on the engine. Other than that, you'd have to take it to a shop to have. There's specialty tools for pressure testing the cooling system. Or if you're really curious and you want to try this, all the automotive parts stores sell dyes for the different chemicals in the car. So you'd have a oil dye and transmission dye. There's coolant dye, and there's even AC dye. So the dye actually under like a UV light would turn like a neon green or type of color, so you could see if there was a leak somewhere.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. So I always come back to ASE certifications. So ASE, if you don't know, is Automotive Service Excellence. In the state of Hawaii and across the United States, we use ASE as a certifying body for automotive technicians. It's really important to look for this logo, and it's also very important to see state certifications in any shop that you might be taking your vehicle to. The law says that a shop has to have at least one master tech, depending on how many technicians they have, or at least a certified, ASE certified and licensed technician overseeing the shop, and they will have their certifications up on the board or up on the wall next to the service writer, and that's the law. It's usually next to the tax, like the business license. So if you can't or you feel uncomfortable with looking at the different types of things that we looked at today on your car, one of the minimal things you can have done is taking your car to a full service gas station. Many people don't know, but full service gas stations usually check your fluids every time they fill gas. And that's just to keep you up to date as far as like, okay, you might need, or ma'am, you might need tires soon because, the tire tread's getting low. And that's what the whole service center or service station was designed for. And that's becoming less and less. So I think one of the only ones in town is Aloha Shell. If you pull up in the full service side, somebody will come out, they'll check your oil and check your transmission fluid, and then probably fill washer fluid. They'll check your tire pressures while they're filling fuel. That's one of the best next steps you could do if you don't feel comfortable working on your car. And then if you had an emergency, AAA would be the next best person to call. If you don't happen to have a mechanic or ASE certified technician in the family, that would be the next thing I would recommend. So knowing your mechanical abilities are very important. I wouldn't start on a job if you didn't have the correct tools. So having AAA is kind of your insurance package that you know you will always be safe, or your family will always be safe in case there's a situation, emergency situation. Okay. So this is a AAA truck. The AAA, a lot of people don't know, but they're capable of jumping or replacing a battery. They can also bring you gas, and they can also put a spare tire on in case you have a flat. And then if the vehicle's stuck in a bad situation, they can always tow you to a safe place to have the work done. Okay, that was the end of the slideshow, but I'm open to any questions, any other questions you might have, and I'm always available down here at Automotive if unless I'm teaching. But we have an Instagram page for the program if you'd like to see what the students have been working on, and then the new website is up in case you want to visit that. And the links are here. And I have one more Slido question after this that is I'm just curious to see what videos any of you might want to see in the future. I'm working on with a student assistant to make some videos for the program. And if there's anything you're interested in seeing, we could post that up on the YouTube site, which all the videos are today are saved up there too. So that's the next Slido. And then while you are answering this question, if there's any other questions you want to send in the chat or just ask, I'd be willing to answer anything you have.
How often should we do oil changes? 3,000
to 5,000 miles. Synthetic oil, which most of the newer cars in the last decade use synthetic oil, and the max life of synthetic oil in a driving situation like on Maui, because we do a lot of stop and go driving, it should be about 5,000 miles. We also have a really harsh environment. There's a lot of salt in the air, a lot of humidity, and that's one of the factors that oil helps to remove out of the engine. So we don't want that just staying in the engine. It won't do any justice to a gas engine. And then obviously a electric car doesn't need oil, but hybrids, mixtures of gas and electric, like the Prius, would need oil changes, and those are about 5,000 miles too.
I have a question.
Sure.
When I change my oil with my mechanic, they always push the expensive synthetic oil. Does it really make a difference?
What kind of car do you drive?
2011 Honda CR-V.
Yes, it does make a big difference. And most of the newer cars coming out use a thinner type of oil because the engines are designed a little bit different, and the passageways that the oil travels inside of the engine, the engineers are making them much smaller. The tolerances and clearances between the engine parts are much smaller, so they require an oil that can handle increased pressure, and an oil that's going to last a little bit longer. So a lot of the newer oils are 020, 030. I've been attending some classes that have been talking about 00 weight oils. So a lot of the cars that are coming out in the next year or so are going to have very ultra lightweight oils, which when you compare this, so if I were to make a comparison between what a 00 weight oil would be, it would be the equivalent of the viscosity of water. So now you have to think about what can handle the shearing forces and the heat, and cooling and heating up again over the life of the oil, and that's what synthetic oil is designed to do. So it's not based purely on petroleum. There's a lot of synthetics that are inside of it that have polymers. I'm sure everybody's heard of polymers. It's like a type of kind of a plastic. And basically the chemical engineers grind these polymers up and they put it in they have like different kinds of oils that are designed to handle the forces that we put the engine oil through. So it is worth the money to put synthetic oil in. Another misconception I've heard over the years is that once you go to synthetic oil, if you had a car that doesn't require synthetic oil, but once you go to synthetic oil, you can't go backwards to conventional oil. And that's not true. I talked to an actual petroleum engineer, and they were saying, if that was true, then how come they sell blended oils, which are required in some cars, of a mix of synthetic and conventional oil? And so you can go back and forth. However, the synthetic oil, it puts a coating over metal that helps reduce friction for a longer period of time without breaking down. Now, all oils are going to break down with heat, but synthetic oils are a little bit stronger molecular wise. The molecules are much more even, and they can handle stresses a lot better than conventional oil can.
I have
Sorry,
a question.
I hope I didn't give too much. Okay,
I have a question.
sure.
Sorry. Okay, so you said 3,000 miles when we do oil changes?
3,000 to 5,000.
Or 3,000 to 5,000. Okay. Or is there an or? Because I'm sorry, I'm Molokai. So
Hi.
I work, like, takes me 2 minutes to get to work. I work right across the street.
Yes.
I live in town I live there near I live like 2 minutes away from town. So I'm in a convenient place. So I'm not gonna do 3,000 miles in 1 year. Yeah. So should I do it at least once a year?
Yes. So at least once a year, because oil, one of the jobs of oil, well, it has several jobs, but it's cool, clean, lubricate, and seal. And so the oil actually helps to remove moisture from the engine, because your engine doesn't ever doesn't run at operating temperature for very long. There's probably a lot of moisture that through heat, just expansion of the air, it develops a lot of condensation. And so your oil is absorbing all that condensation. And if you don't change it at least once a year, your engine oil isn't protecting the engine the way it was designed to.
Okay, thank you. Because on the place that I have it serviced, they put the sticker and tells us to remind us like when to come back. So
Yes.
I shouldn't even look at that. So at least
Yes.
once a year, since I don't travel as often. So
Yes, and some people actually think that I don't, okay. So I actually became friends with a technician who owns a shop, the only shop on an island, and a lot of the people visit there on vacations and stuff, and they might drive a car, not even 100 miles in a year, and they said, well, you have to change the oil, and because it does other jobs besides just lubricating the engine, and that's just going to help keep the engine lasting as long as it can. So at least once a year would be the best for your car.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Lawrence,
Yes.
do your students if we bring our vehicles to your students, do they do checks?
Depending on the class we're teaching at the time. Right now, the other instructor, Thomas, he has a diagnostics class going on with, so it's basically the capstone course before students graduate, and they do, they're supposed to be able to do full services on the vehicles. But if anybody who is attending the class, if you need your car checked or you have a question, you can always stop down here and I'll look at it for you and answer the question the best way I can. Obviously some questions are going to be they're going to need more testing. But if you just want your fluids checked, anytime, you guys are welcome to come by here and I can help you.
Thank you, Lawrence. I have one more question.
Sure.
Oh, where did it go? Is AAA better than roadside assistance service that you can get from like a dealer or your car insurance?
You know, actually, because we live on an island, it's the same guys who do the same drivers. So they pretty much will call, they put out a call, and whoever answers that call first is going to get the contract for coming to get you. Either AAA is what is that company called? They have red trucks, 808 Towing. That's who has the contract right now on Maui, at least. But I think even if you were to go through a dealership, I'm pretty sure because of the quantity of trucks that 808 Towing has right now, it's going to be the same people. But if you have a package deal through a dealership, you should use the dealership's package first, and then take a look at pricing. I think AAA is like $100 a year. And even as a master tech, I still have AAA because I can't predict for everything that may happen. So I'd rather be safe than sorry. Just so it's worth the money.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's see here. I'll look at this Slido question after. Let me stop sharing so I can see everybody's face. Okay, here's everybody again. Any other questions I can help with? All right. I'd like to thank Sunny for helping to hold this class, and Joyce for the opportunity to share this with everybody. And if there's anything in the future you guys like to see, maybe we can hold another Maiau class in the future.
Thank you so much, Lawrence and Sunny. It was such an informational session, and so many people, said the same thing. So thank you, and maybe we look forward to hearing more about cars.
Thank you.